tell you about the banking profession. If you can see this, I attempted to create an outline for you. And so we're going to go over 5 areas. I'm going to give you a little bit of my background. I'm going to talk about credit scores and why it's important to you. I've got some college thoughts for you. And then we're going to figure out if banking is for you or not. And then I've got some final thoughts. So let's get going. First of all, I'm 68 years old, which means I'm about, I'm guessing it close to 50 years older than all of you. I was born and raised and worked most of my life in the 20th century. And in some ways, I'm a technological dinosaur, but in other ways, I might be able to give you some really good insights. I grew up in a small town in Virginia, and that's where I did most of my banking before I retired about 5 years ago. How did I get interested in banking? When I was in high school, I was a junior. A friend of mine came to me and said, look, me and my family were relocating. How would you like to take my spot as a part-time helper up at one of the local banks? And I said, that's great. You know, I had a real respect for the banking profession, and a lot of the bankers were professional and good to me at church and other places. And so I readily accepted. And for the remainder of that year and in my senior year, I worked part-time in the bank. When I got there, they said, we're going to have you work in the vault where all the money is. And so then I really got excited. And so they took me in there, and here are all these bags of coin. I mean, $10,000 worth of quarters. Do you have any idea how much that weighs? And then there were the other denominations of coins. And they showed me a little machine which rolled the money into the wrappers, which you're probably familiar with. And so that's what I did most of my afternoons after school. I never thought I'd get tired of money, but try lifting a bag of $10,000 worth of quarters up and down into the machines, and it gets old real fast. Anyway, I ended up in college at Virginia Tech Hokies in Blacksburg, Virginia, and I actually got my degree in education. I taught for a little bit. It's one of the reasons I was excited about doing this. And I got out, decided I better try teaching, see if that's what I really wanted to do. And as much as I enjoyed the teaching aspect, the administration was weak. So I had some friends in banking, contacted them. Long story short, in 1974, I got an interview with the largest bank in the state, and they happened to be interviewing people from all types of academic backgrounds and majors. And so I was in the right place at the right time and got on with the largest bank. And the rest is history. I spent 40 years in banking. And it's easier to tell you the banks that I haven't worked for, because in the 80s and 90s, there was a lot of this, what's called mergers and acquisitions going on. It's where banks were buying each other up. And there was a little business called savings and loan industry back in the 80s that went under because of that competition and because of a big hiccup in the economy, but that's a big story for another day. So anyway, I've been very, very fortunate. I've had great jobs with the banks, but my best job by far was my last one, where I had an opportunity to work for the state housing finance agency called VHDA, Virginia Housing and Development Authority. It was an outstanding, continues to be an outstanding organization. It's known as an FHA, which is a housing finance agency, and every state in the country, including Florida, has its own HFA. VHDA, my employer, happens to be considered by many to be the top HFA in the country. So that's pretty nice. Just a great organization to work for. And I was in loan administration. Just trust me when I say it's a big part of banking, and we'll go from there. As I talk, and I'm sorry to go so fast, but I need to cover a lot of material for you and try to hit the high points. I really do hope that as I'm talking, if you get a chance to take a note or two, make a few notes, that would be great. And I really, really hope that you will have a question or two at the end of this, because I really enjoy them. I can't read your mind, so to hear you ask what it is you're interested in helps me answer the question directly. Let me ask you a question. You don't have, I got a bunch of questions for you, and you don't have to answer. I'm just going to throw them out at you. How many of you have been inside a bank? How many of you have a checking and or a savings account? Ooh, big question here. How many of you at this point in your young life have a credit card? Maybe yes, maybe not yet, but trust me, when the colleges and the especially the credit card agencies, which are usually part of major banks, and they find out you're going off to college, you're going to start getting some mail from them, and they will be hungry to have a little bit of your business. And I'll talk about that in a minute. By the way, as you probably know, banks lend money. When you need money, banks are a source of where to get money. And there are a lot of requirements before they give you that money. But banks primarily make their money from lending money to other people. I'll explain about income producing departments in the bank and non-income producing. There is a 90% chance that each of you will need to borrow money from a bank at some time in your life for such things as auto loans, home loans, maybe a boat loan, home improvement loans, any number of things where the money you need is not equal to the money you have on hand. So you need to make up the difference some way. And that's where banking comes in, as they provide that kind of service. Let's talk about credit scores now. Do any of you know what a credit score is and why it's so important? And do you know the difference between assets and liabilities? Let me simplify for you. Assets are money. They're things with value. Assets have value and they have money. Liabilities is what you may owe for those assets. It's the cost of those assets. And so if your assets are higher than your liabilities, you're in good shape. You've got more things that are more valuable than what you owe. Asset equals plus, liabilities equals minus. When your liabilities are more than your assets, when you owe more money than you have, you're in big trouble. So try to remember that as we go along. It's just a little good rule of thumb here, and that hopefully will help a little bit. Let's talk about credit scores, because practically everybody that borrows money is going to need a credit score. You're going to need a credit score. And so there are three main credit agencies. You don't have to remember these, but there are three main agencies. There's TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. And these three major credit agencies work with the banks and other corporations and institutions that give out credit. Lowe's Home Improvement, Macy's Department Store, they all have their own credit cards. Everywhere you go, everybody's got credit cards that they issue to you and that they want to issue to you. Well, before you can get one, you need a credit score. Now, in your case, you're going off to college. Maybe you don't have any credit established yet. Maybe you haven't borrowed. Maybe you don't have a credit card yet. And what's going to happen, just to make a very long story short, is the credit agencies are probably, and the credit card companies are probably going to ask that not only you sign the application, but that one or both of your parents sign for you. And when you're starting out, it's a win-win proposition because your parents want to help you. And so by signing your application with you, they're giving you a chance to build up some credit and prove to them that you know how to handle money. That if you borrow something, if you charge something, that you're going to pay it back, and not only pay it back, but pay it back on time. And so they're in your corner. On your side of it, it's a great way for you to begin establishing credit. So if you get one while you're in college, just remember that. Don't go overboard. Just be sensible. Don't spend more than you can afford to pay back, and you'll be okay. You'll be fine. And when you graduate and you start looking for work and you get a job, you'll not only have some credit established, but have a track record as well. And that's real important because while you're doing all this, while your parents are borrowing money or charging on credit cards, they're building their credit. And these agencies are documenting everything. It's all digits. It's all technology, as you probably know. And they keep records which will follow you all your life. And here's the bottom line on credit. This is what you need to know. Credit scores range from a low of 300 to a high of 850. Anything below 500
Hello.
is really poor. It's really bad. Anything below 600 is poor. Anything below 700 is fair. 700 to 800 is great. And anything over 800 is terrific. Good for you. And that's what you want to go for. You maintain a high credit score of 750 or higher, preferably over 800. You're not going to have any problems getting credit anywhere. In fact, everybody's going to be chasing you to borrow their money. All right, let's move on to college stuff. I went online and Googled the University of Florida, Florida State University, and the University of South Florida. Three schools within the state here. And I'm going to read out a whole bunch of majors that you might want to consider if you're considering the field of banking and finance, and some of these others will apply as well. But let me run down this list real quick because time is of the essence. Accounting, business, general business, business management, economics, finance, insurance, and real estate, statistics, business management, risk management. Now, all those different majors I've just listed, think of as in one column, and they're all directly related to banking in one form or another. Now, the next section of majors that I'm going to read out, there's a purpose in dividing these up. So just listen and I'll try to make it all make sense. Here's some other majors. Marketing, advertising, computer science, management information systems, computer engineering, telecommunications, human services, general management, and public relations. Now, the reason I divided these majors up is because it relates to various departments of banking that you'll run into if and when you interview and are offered a job with the bank. And let me go over those right now. There are two main areas of a bank, and it's very simple. It is the lending side of the bank versus support services of the bank. As I told you, the lending areas are the departments that make income and produce income for the bank. The support services are non-income producing. They are what help the bank function and provide all these products and services. The lending side of the bank is where you're going to need to know about assets, liabilities, financial statements, net worth, income and expense analysis, budget, cash flow. Lots of these technical areas that are germane to the income producing side, lending side of a bank. And the other services like marketing, facilities management, oh my goodness, the computer areas today, the technology, that side of it, those are very, very important, and they support the other departments. But purposes of today's talk, they're two main areas of the bank, and one produces income and the other one supports the departments that produce that income. So keep that in mind when you're looking at what to major in. And another reason for delineating between those two sections is because you heard me tell you that I was an education major, and I was lucky. I was in the right place at the right time, and so they hired me in their management training program, which was on the lending side. And so I came up through the branch management side, got all that credit experience. I got promoted to branch management and then to the real estate finance department. And my goodness, I see I've already run out of time. I'm going to broad brush this next area. When you're thinking about banks, whether you want a large bank or a small bank, you want a federal bank or a community or state bank. I started with the largest bank in my state. It was a federal bank. Lots of departments, lots of opportunity, lots of ways to be promoted and move up. And working for a large bank once you get those credentials, that can't do anything but help you if you decide to transfer and move up to another bank, or if you decide to go into another area or related area of finance. Let's talk money. I bet you're interested in salaries. Obviously, I've been out of banking for a long time, but I got a little story to tell you about. Back in the 1980s, they did a survey and they did a study. Now, tellers, when you go into a bank, you see the teller line where they give you the money. They are the front line of the banking system. They're sort of like the teachers in the education system. They're on the front line and they're doing incredible work. But the tellers in banking, as in most corporations, the tellers are in the pecking order of salaries down here. And in the 80s, the average teller salary was about $6,000. The average salary for the head of the bank, the CEO, was 9 times that much, $54,000. Okay. A little over 15 years later, did I say 1980s? I'm sorry, that was in the 1970s when they did that survey, not long after I started in banking. Almost a little more than 20 years later, they updated that survey. And in just 20 years, the tellers were now making over 3 times the salary which was just over $20,000, only about 20 years later. However, the CEOs were making 200, the amount of the salaries had gone up by 254%. And the heads of these big banks were making in the range of 5 million. That's right, $5 million. So you can see the real inequity between the people that were working at the bottom and the people at the very top. But you got to start somewhere. So just keep in mind that nowadays the banks are pretty competitive. They're still pretty competitive. They are looking for a specialization. So if you were to choose business as your major with a focus on accounting, or a focus on insurance, or a focus on just general finance, that's going to look pretty good. And of course, if you got a master's degree, you'll go up to the top of the list too. But here's some other things for you to think about. While you're in college, think about getting involved in college organizations, whether it be student government or other types of organizations on campus. Employers will like to see community involvement, because when you work for the bank, that's what they expect you to do too. Another thing to think about are just just the general things that you're going to need to interview well. One other thing, if you're bilingual, you're hot. You're hot. I mean, that just goes without saying, that if you've got command over 2 or more languages, you're going to be a good commodity. If you obviously you have to have your standard computer skills, but anything over and above that is going to weigh heavily in your favor too. But there are other things, like the general things that you may have heard along the way about interviewing. And that is that you really need some good oral and written communication skills. And you know what? Everything's on computer. You got spell check. You got no excuses for not using it. I've read some really, really bad emails from adults, and believe me, if you're interviewing for a job, if you're sending in a resume, if you got to put a little cover email or a paragraph or something together, you really want that thing to read right. And even if you have to dictate what you want to write into your phone or your computer, at least check your spelling and your grammar. The other thing is you're going to need to know how to handle conflict. And that's back to the communication skills. It's handling conflict. You're going to run into all kinds of personalities. You're going to run into power players, who want to be in charge. You're going to run into melodrama queens and kings. And the better you can handle that, and the better you can function within a team environment, that's really going to bode well for you. Let's see. The last things I want you to think about. Basic credit again, and this is for your individual benefit. I'll never forget a banker who told me this saying. He says, when your wants exceed your needs, that's when you get in trouble. When your wants exceed your needs, that's when you get in trouble. And another way of saying that is simply, when you go to buy something, even now, just simple stuff, when you go to buy something, just ask yourself a simple question. Do you want this, or do you need it? And most of the time, you'll come out okay. If you aren't familiar with making a budget, I highly recommend a budget, particularly in your 20s and 30s. You're going to be thinking about getting married, starting a family, and you need to understand income and expense. assets, liabilities. You need to understand what you can afford to pay for and what you can't afford to pay for. And being able to do a budget each month and then spread that out to an annual budget, and then up your game to where you can not only budget annually, but then you can do some computer programming. I use Excel myself, and you can start doing projections. The cost of living is going to go up this percent. These expenses I'm going to have for the next 3 years. You can budget for 5 years and then 10 years. And that's where it really gets fun, is seeing the projections. And
Mr. Maddox,
yeah, it's time to stop.
I'm sorry. Yeah, some of the students might have to get back to classes, and I need to take a quick roll.
Yeah,
Students, I have put my email and also Michelle Roberge's email in the chat box if you want to email us any questions, and we will ask Mr. Maddox and get back to you. So Mr. Maddox, thank you so much. That was very informative, especially the budgeting and, you know, talking about credit cards, because yes, I have a freshman in college who is getting tons of credit card information in the mail. So thank you very much. And you can stay on, Mr. Maddox, if you'd like, or if not, you can sign off. And students, I'm going to start reading off your names. If you can unmute the mic when I say your name and tell me what school you go to. Okay, the first one is Dominic Adamiak.
Seminole High School.
Okay, thank you, Dominic. All right, next is it Lloyd Alexander or Alexander Lloyd?
Lloyd Alexander, Palm Harbor Middle School.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Daniel Caluette. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right.
Chichi Rodriguez Academy.
Chichi, okay, great. And then I've got Duvon Quintero Gomez. Duvon. Okay, I've got Emmanuel Chanda.
Lago Middle School.
Okay. And I've got Naleli Cisneros and Natalie Cisneros.
Azalea Middle School.
I'm sorry, could you say that again, please?
Azalea Middle School.
Are you both at Azalea?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, and then Corey Howell, thank you. I've got you. Let's see here. I've got an Eliza L. I don't have a last name. Is there an Eliza L? Okay, Eliza, if you're on and you can't unmute, please email me so I have your last name. Next is Omari Forte Belzari. Omari Forte. I'm sorry?
Isabella's there. And I'm from Dixie Holland.
Dixie Hollins. Okay. Thank you. And Jasmine Garcia.
Palm Harbor Middle School.
Okay, and Kira Garrison.
Largo Middle School.
And Melanie Boltieda.
Oak Grove Middle School.
Did you say Oak Grove?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Jose Romero. Jose Romero. Okay. Sierra Lee.
Largo Middle School.
Okay. Thank you. Showing up in force here. All right. Micah McCrae.
Dixie Hollins.
Okay. Michael Torres. Michael Torres.
Pinellas Park High.
Okay. All right, and I've got Litzy Nopal May.
Oak Grove Middle School.
Grove. I've got Giovanni Ocampo Garcia.
Osceola Fundamental High School.
I've got Valeria Ortega Cisneros.
Largo Middle School.
Okay, and Vladimir, are you also at Largo?
Yeah.
And then I've got Anne Shenauda. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong.
Palm Harbor High.
James Viscuso. James, are you still on? James Viscuso?
Sebadell High.
Okay. Kaylin Whiting. Kaylin, are you still on? Okay. Michael Zakai.
Eastlake Middle.
Okay. Cameo Heron. Cameo Heron, are you on?
Largo High School or Largo Middle School.
And I'm not sure. It's either Naniva Borislava or Borislava Naniva.
Thurgood Marshall for Marshall Middle School.
I'm sorry, did you say Thurgood Marshall?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Raya Jones. Araya Jones. Okay. Nyasia Rocker.
Largo Middle School.
Okay. All right. Helena Dokish.
Palm Harbor High.
All right. And then I had a couple people message me. Is there anyone that I missed?
Yeah, my mic was unmuted or was muted.
Okay. Who are you, honey?
Kaylin Whiting.
Kaylin Whiting. Okay. What school do you go to?
Osceola Fundamental High School.
All right. Anybody else? Jose Romero?
Yep.
What school do you go to?
Largo Middle.
Okay, great. All right, did I get everybody?
Did you get me?
What's your name?
Giovanni Ocampo.
Osceola High?
Oh, okay.
Is that you?
Yeah.
Yes, I heard you.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Did you get me?
What's your name?
Wendy Rodriguez.
Wendy Rodriguez. No, I didn't see that you were on. But I do see your text in the chat. Thank you, Wendy. And I will get you on here. Okay. Anybody else? So how are you guys? I know some of you have been on multiple calls. Are you liking these career conversations?
Yeah. It's
Good.
fun.
Yes.
Good. Yeah, I've been on all of them, and I think they're pretty interesting myself. Okay. All right. I think I got everybody. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and email me or Michelle Roberge, and we'll ask Mr. Maddox. One last time. Anybody? Did I miss anyone?
Hey, me. Wait. Me, Emmanuel Chanda.
Emmanuel Chanda. Yeah, I said your name. Let me go back up. Yes. Oh, no, you're Largo Middle?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. That's
Yep,
me.
I got you. All right, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
You too, bye.
Bye.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your talk.
Oh, well, thank you.
You have
Thank
a
you
good
very
day.
much. Yeah, thank you. You too.